Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Victor. This is Jack. So we've been talking World War II, some Holocaust and whatnot. What happened at the beginning of the war? Like who started it and who's responsible and like what actually happened?
Okay, let's do this. We're try to do this in an efficient manner. So I'm not going to talk about things that aren't related to the start of the war, like the Anti-Comintern Pact, which is the pact between Germany and Japan. Different stuff like the Italian invasion of North Africa. We're just not going to talk about things that are unrelated.
Okay.
We're just going to try to focus on the things that are related. And what I want you to think about when we're talking about this, because in the end, the question is, who bears war guilt as being the aggressor?
Okay.
That's where we're going with this. That's what I'm interested in. Because who started a war is tricky. I want to know who's the bad guy. So basically, Germany loses World War I.
Okay.
Right? For whatever reasons. We could talk about that at another time. And they're saddled with an immense amount of war guilt. War guilt. That's not the right word. War debt, right?
Okay.
And so basically in the series by Winston Churchill called The Second Great War, it's a 6-volume series. At the beginning, he has the thing and it says, the moral of the work, okay? And he has 4 points. It's in war, resolution; in defeat, defiance; in victory, magnanimity; and in peace, goodwill. Okay. So then he goes on to explain, and it is a bit of a hyperbole, but he says that after World War One, that because he's writing this after World War Two.
Okay.
He says after World War One, at the Treaty of Versailles, the Germans were saddled with so much war debt that in the all future history of Germany, they could never repay it. And basically his point was that they were victorious in World War One, but they didn't have magnanimity. It's a rough one to get out.
Yeah.
And so basically, that's what led to World War II, he's saying, is that they weren't magnanimous. Okay. You know what I mean?
The victors weren't.
No, they were brutal. And I'm going to tell you what they did to Germany after World War One. They saddled them with all this war debt, right? Then they took the Rhineland, which is Western, so it's near Belgium, home, and France. And they made it a demilitarized zone, right? And there were French patrolling it and all types of stuff. And then they took the Sudetenland, which is the Southland, right? And Germany doesn't have a lot of natural defenses as far as like mountains and stuff like that.
Okay.
But this is a mountainous region, full of ethnic Germans. And they gave that to their southern neighbor, Czechoslovakia, right? Now, if you go to the east, you have, so like Germany goes up the Baltic like this, like around it. And this appendage here is Prussia, East Prussia. Okay. There's East Prussia, West Prussia. They basically took West Prussia, chopped it right here, said this is now part of Poland up here, right? And then in here is the city of Danzig, which they renamed the Free City of Danzig, full of ethnic Germans, but they wanted to give Poland a port. So now Prussia and Germany are still together, but they're separated. So you got to go in a sealed train from one to the other. Right. Germans are very unhappy like this because you're still just a German. You live in Danzig, right? But you're a Pole. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And you're like, this is just stupid. You know what I mean? They're just robbing us. So basically what happened is the war debt caused an economic downturn. Well, it caused hyperinflation is what it caused.
Okay.
And so because of that, the World War I victors were mad, like, where's our money? So then basically in January 11, 2023, this is 1923.
Okay.
The French then occupied the Ruhr Valley, which is the heavy industrial sector of Germany. And they just kind of looted the factories, like just took the product as payment for the debt. Do you know what I'm saying? Which caused even more problems with the German economy. But the Germans owed them based on the Treaty of Versailles. So then America stepped in and they did the Dawes Plan, which was on August 16th, 1924. So this is, what is that? That's 19 months after the French occupied the Ruhr Valley. And the French did some stuff. Like at one point, they brought in 500 African soldiers from their colonies. And then the Germans were really angry about that because the law of self-determination, it seems like we talk about this every video, means that a people of their country get the right of self-determination. What happens to themselves, their immigration policy, blah, blah, blah. Foreign people shouldn't be choosing this like what is happening in America today. So they were mad about that, And so basically, there was hyperinflation, but then the Dawes Plan caused a recovery in the German economy,
Okay.
And then basically when the stock market crashed in the US in 1929, there was another problem in the worldwide economy at that point. So then Germany's economy falters, and this is when Hitler's going to come to power. He was doing good, and then, well, he went to jail. And then, but he was doing good after that. And then when the economy got good, though, he went down. But then when the economy got bad after the stock market crash, he started going up because people were looking for a solution. So Hitler offered a solution, and it was in 25 points. I'm going to put a link in the description below. You can read all 25 of them if you like. But these are 25 things he would do if elected. Very first thing on the list is, we demand the union of all Germans in a great Germany on the basis of the principle of self-determination of all peoples. All peoples have this right. Okay. So this is good. This is why the war is going to start, because of point one. He's promised to do point one.
Gotcha.
It's legal, lawful, and allowed for all people except for white people today. But back then they really respected like ideas and had morals and principles and stuff. So anyways, so he's elected to do these 25 things, of which I'm only going to read you the one. You can read the rest for yourself. They're fascinating. And most of them, you'll probably read it and be like, wow, I wish we had this, all the things. So he is elected in 1933. Well, you're going to call me on that. His party gets the most votes out of any party, because you vote for the party, not the leader, right? And so they didn't get a majority of the votes, but they were the largest group. And then you create a faction, with another group, and then you have a majority. So then he gets Reich Chancellor. And then some things are going to go, and then Hindenburg's going to give him the presidency. And okay, whatever. We're not talking about Hitler here, though. We're talking about his plan to reunify, right?
Okay.
So basically what happened is, everybody's scared of Germany because Germans are tough.
Okay.
They, the entire 19th century, they just waged war with everybody. You know what I mean? And just they're pretty tough,
Okay.
And so like it's to the advantage of their neighbors if they keep them weak. But they're keeping them weak unjustly by separating their people and ruling over their people and doing terrible, terrible things to their people.
They're overplaying.
Yeah. And you're just making them angry, And rightly so. If you're doing things to my women right across the border, they're still my women,
Right,
or my people's women, or my tribes, or just whatever. So basically, on March 7th of 1936 now.
Okay.
So 33, he came into power. 39, the war's going to start. So we're in March of 1936. The Germans march in and occupy the Rhineland, right?
Okay.
And the French basically just leave. They're like, hey, this is not the hill to die on. I was thinking about it, it's kind of like, if I'm bullying somebody, say I like push a small kid up against the wall and say, give me your lunch. And then like 6 construction workers walk over and say, hey, we're doing with that kid. I'll be like, nothing, I'm cool. Should have been doing that anyways. You know what I mean? Like you call me out. Hey, listen, you know what I mean? I'll find another kid to bully or something, But so whatever. Nobody was too worried about this,
Well, 36, the Olympics were in Berlin, right?
Oh, that's true.
I was just thinking,
Oh, interesting. I wonder what month that was in relation. Because if it was the Summer Olympics, it would be after that. Huh, interesting. Good point. So then we're going to fast forward a little bit. We're going to go to 1938.
Okay.
So now we're close to the war starting. And what we have is the Anschluss, which is the rejoining. So Austria votes to join and become part of Germany.
And they're ethnic Germans? Or not really?
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
Okay.
The old German way to call it is the Österreich.
Okay.
And it's basically the Eastern realms,
Okay.
And so if you recall, when the Mongols were invading Europe, it was at the Eastern Watch where they turned back.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? They did not make it farther than that. So they've always had a prestigious position,
Mm-hmm.
They made it into Poland. They made it all the way through Hungary. They tried. But so they wanted to be a part of this thing. Now, this movement, this National Socialist movement. Now, later on, some countries would join them, like Hungary. But Hungary will be like kind of like a satellite partner.
Okay.
You're not like Austria's full in. You're full Reich right here. Gross Reich, the Greater Reich,
But why do they want to join? Why do these countries want to join? What has happened in Germany since they took over?
Yeah, okay, so we have a video called What is Nationalism? I'll link in the description below. But basically, the entire world is in the Great Depression, and Germany's thriving. It's just going absolutely bonkers how great it is, Sure, there's people in jail, terrible people who want to do terrible things to your children at the, Institute of Sexology or whatever they had, where they burned the books, the child porn and stuff that they burned out in the street. The people are furious that they burn that stuff, and everybody's having babies, and the government's like, "Oh, we'll give you your house loans, no interest. Have the babies, we'll give you." Like, they're doing all these stuff. You can watch our other video if you're interested. But basically, they're like, "Oh, we want that too." Oh, families are great if you're a sensible human being. So basically, they join, right? And that's not protested at all. People are nervous just because Germany's getting powerful, and they're away from the banking system. So everybody's scared to death because they're like, you're not looting your people. You need to be looting your people and giving all the money to a foreign people who not German at all. That's how it works. That's how it works. You know what I mean? So basically.
So when you said there was no protest, you're talking about people from other countries protesting this unification.
Right. It was their choice.
The people inside the borders are all happy that this is going on.
And there was a like an Austria First Party, like an ideology going that says, no, we're not like them though. We're making our own thing. Because keep in mind, before this, they came from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and they had a good thing going. They had a really good thing going previously, but now that everything had decayed a little bit, and they needed the revitalization of this new ideology. In my opinion, that's my opinion. So the next, Germany turns its sight south. It's funny because people are getting mad around the world at these little things. It's like, oh, Germany got back part of their land. Man, you're appeasing Hitler by giving them back some of his own land that you robbed from him that has all your ethnic Germans in it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're furious. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's like the whole appeasement thing's silly until it gets to the next part.
Okay.
When you start to question why you're appeasing. So the next part is the Munich Pact, and it's signed on September 29th and 30th of 1938. So this is 6 months after the Anschluss, or the rejoining with Austria. And the funny thing is, so we talked about this in other videos, but the world separated into great powers, and each great power has influence over a region. So Czechoslovakia doesn't get to come to this meeting.
Okay.
Poland doesn't get to come. Poland's like, I'm great. And they're like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? So it's England, Britain, and Germany are going to decide the fate of Sudetenland and...
You said England and Britain.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Britain, France, pardon me.
Oh, and Germany.
Britain, France, and Germany are going to come. I believe it was only those three. I know Czechoslovakia.
About the Southlands?
About the Sudetenland, right.
Okay.
Which is part of Czechoslovakia. In the meantime, Czechoslovakia has built 25 fortresses up there to prevent further German incursion. And they're like, hey, that's our land. We want it back, Mm-hmm. But if we give you that land, the argument is there's nothing to prevent you from coming into our lands now, And so basically, they all sat down and they said, hey, we're going to make this deal. It's the Munich Pact. If you agree that you have no future territorial aggressions, which he did because he still wanted the free city of Danzig back. So I don't know why he signed this. If you promise that you won't go into Czechoslovakia, which he did, and I don't know why he signed this. A lot of reasons we could talk about why he did that, but he gets the line of fortresses,
Okay.
So keep in mind, so this is 6 months after the Anschluss. For the Anschluss, they needed to bring the tanks down to do the parade with Hitler in Vienna, but the tanks stopped driving because they were in such, it just wasn't working. So they had to load them all on a train, embarrassing enough, drive them down there, get them working good enough that they can go down for the parade. But these are the same tanks that they're kind of like, we could attack the Sudetenland, 25 fortresses. It's like, could you? You know what I mean? Can you get the trucks going down the road? I mean, the tanks? Anyways, maybe they had fixed them in 6 months, whatever. So basically, they say they agree to this plan.
Okay.
And they give them the Sudetenland. So basically, now we're going to talk about Hitler violating the Munich Pact and occupying Czechoslovakia. Okay. So there's basically a large minority of ethnic Germans since the 13th century down there. And you could argue that they're all Germans. You could just make that argument if you want to. And so Hitler, his like one thing he had going was that he was a pan-nationalist German, So he wanted all the Germans to be united, Basically, Czechoslovakia had a very weak leader from 38 to 39. And Hitler could just tell him anything, and the dude would do it.
Oh, okay.
But nothing seemed to please Hitler. So he says, hey, if you got German-only classes, I don't want Jewish teachers. And the guy's like, okay, fair. I mean, it's actually pretty fair. You know what I mean? If I said, hey, I got German-only classes, I don't want a Czechoslovakian teacher. Yeah. Kind of fair, Like we're trying to make a deal where we live together, And so basically, at one point, Hitler says, now remember after the Munich Pact is when, what's his name says, peace in our time. What was his name before Winston Churchill? Neville Chamberlain. You know, he gets off the plane, landing back in London. He's like, I've secured peace in our time. Okay. Anyways, so then there's a lot of reasons why people say that Hitler occupied Czechoslovakia. One of them, if you just read a general like textbook at school, it'll say because he was lying and saying that there were attacks against ethnic Germans in Czechoslovakia and he needed to go save them. But that same textbook, when you fast forward to the Danzig story, will say the same thing. And the amount of brutality against the ethnic Germans is real over here.
Oh.
At Danzig. I'm going to give you the numbers in a second. You know what I mean? It's terrible what was happening. So then when that same textbook tells me, oh, but it was also a false flag in Czechoslovakia, he was lying. I kind of don't believe you. You lost your credibility. I don't have any evidence I don't know. I just know there were claims. Hitler made a claim. The history book was lying about Hitler lying about, is telling you that. You make up your own mind. There was also huge munition plants in Skoda, I believe. I've heard that. I've also heard that the economy was going really good in Germany, but there wasn't a lot of actual stuff behind the currency because it was backed by the worker, but everything was going so great. But what he needed to fix that was he needed to steal the gold out of the Czechoslovakian banks, which doesn't make any sense to me because it was backed by the worker and it's the number one currency in the world for people to be enthused about possessing, you know?
Right.
Why do you need gold to back it? It doesn't make any sense.
But there weren't gold in his banks when he took over?
Yeah, there was, but they're not backing the currency with the gold.
Gotcha.
You know, the gold just belongs to who it belongs to. So, anyways, basically, okay. So he occupied. In 1939. The war's going to start this year. He occupied Czechoslovakia on March 15th of 1939.
The whole country, or just where those Germans were? Like he occupied all of.
Well, he had already got the Sudetenland 6 months before, and now he just goes and takes everything else.
Oh, all of Czechoslovakia. Okay.
Right. And there was also this this thing going around where they said that Czechoslovakia is the vulnerable rump of Germany.
Okay.
Because without it being fortified properly by the Germans, they felt like they could be invaded from there.
Okay.
So I would like to ask him, Hitler, why he chose to make this move. I don't think it was a great move. Okay. It is what it is.
Yeah.
This is just what happened. Okay, so that's 6 months later. So it was September for the Munich Pact of 38. Now it's March of 39. Occupation of Slovakia, 6 months till the war starts, right? After that happened, 16 days later, on March 31st, England, Britain, and France sign a defense pact with Poland. It's a mutual defense pact.
Okay.
If you're ever attacked, we'll attack your aggressors, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
In the case of specifically Germany, Britain promises boots on the ground, British Expeditionary Force, and the French agree to attack Germany from the west if Poland was ever invaded. Okay, so in order to counter that, on August 23rd and 24th, so this is right before the war, 1939. This is just a couple days before the war. They do the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, which is a pact between those are the foreign ambassadors for Germany and Russia, and they make a secret pact saying, we won't attack each other, but if we have to slice up any countries between us, we'll just both work together to attack them and split them, you know, in hopes of future peace. Okay, so now we come to Danzig.
Okay.
That's that little city by the coast. Textbook tells you that there wasn't terrible things going on there and that Hitler was lying about it. Here's the truth. Before the war started, there were 80,000 ethnic Germans in refugee camps. Either in or around Danzig or in German territory.
And like they've been there since World War I or what?
No. What I'm saying is every day, so many ethnic Germans are getting attacked by the Poles. It could be agent provocateurs of the French and British intelligence service. Could be Jewish people who just hate because we're going to later see a whole guerrilla warfare in Poland. We're going to see Jewish people try to poison German cities. After the war, we're going to see bands of Germans just running around in Poland in the forest. Bands of Jews just going just to see if they can catch your wife out hanging up the clothes and things so they could snipe her and run back in the forest. So it could be any of those things. Or it could just be genuine Poles who hate the Germans. Because if you know anything about the Germans and the Poles, they really don't like each other, right? So basically what happens is 80,000 people before the war starts are currently living in camps around Danzig or in Germany. You know, they just don't even have homes. When it's all said and done, 58,000 ethnic German civilians are going to die because of these. They're called pogroms. You know, they're small massacres, you know. In one instance, there was over 300 people at church, and they locked them in, sealed them in from the outside, and just burnt the whole thing to the ground with the women and children screaming. So it doesn't really matter who was doing these attacks, whether it was the Poles, whether it was British intelligence, whether it was Jewish people. It doesn't really matter, because Hitler has this whole platform where it's like, hey, I got to protect my people. Yeah. This is my job. I'm dad. I'll protect my kids, you know? And so whether these things they really happened, that's for sure. And the documentation for how they happened came in the 50s because this area is all behind the curtain, you know? And this was Soviet historians going out there in the 50s to find out what really happened.
Oh, wow.
And they documented from these families and people who had died and went and saw graves and stuff and said, wow, because now it's okay to say, you know, that the Poles were murdering the Germans because the Nazis are gone at that point, of course. And so basically, and then, okay. So I'm going to tell you the events of what happened factually.
Okay.
So on the 1st of September, the Germans went over the border to attack. Okay. The attack on Poland would last 26 days, after which Poland would surrender. The Russians invaded Poland from the other side, which would be from the east, and they invaded on the 17th. So they waited 16 days after Germany started to see if Germany was going to win and see what the response of England, Britain, and France are. So they waited 16 out of the 26 days, and they only participated for 10 days.
Okay.
And then they got a split, you know?
Gotcha.
But they wanted to make sure Germany was winning. The British Expeditionary Force did not come.
Okay.
The French marched towards the Siegfried Line in the west of Germany, and then they turned around and went back to their defensive positions.
Oh.
And the Poles got slaughtered or captured. And so basically,
so he just took all of Poland?
Yeah, well, no, basically, between him and the USSR, because the USSR was coming in from the east, and he was coming in from the west. You know.
Okay.
And then once they got it all captured, then they came together and negotiated. Okay, here's how we're to split it. You know what I mean? And they had expected him to go for Danzig, so they had put this massive fortification around, you know, of all their troops and stuff, and then just blitz for Warsaw. You know,
okay.
And so they started bombing Warsaw on the first day. As their troops were going across the border, the Luftwaffe was bombing Warsaw. And the siege of Warsaw will last from the 8th until the 28th, which doesn't make sense because it was 26 days long, and that's one day longer than 26 days, but that's what it says online. Okay. But basically they fought until they finally surrendered. 140,000 troops surrendered, POWs, you know. And do you want to, like, because that's kind of the end of the facts. I got a lot to say about them. Do you want to pitch? What do you think first? Like, whose fault is this?
Well, the Winston Churchill with the in victory were this.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting, and I mean, it's definitely connected to World War I. Like, I don't know how you can dismiss that and say that this was like Hitler aggression. I mean, he was looking after his own people. And as you're sitting there thinking about it, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about it, and I was thinking, like, what if we had a place that wasn't connected to us, like Alaska? And
interesting.
Like, what if someone up? It's still our people, and we're gonna go and we're going to. You know what I mean? Like, it's we've never owned the land in between, like in Canada, that connects us. Yeah. But like, that's still our people, and you wouldn't let things happen to them.
You still nuke anybody who touched them. Jokingly, but do you know what I'm saying? That would be your attitude.
Or red flag a war, you know, just whatever Americans do.
Interesting, yeah.
But it's hard to not sympathize with what Hitler did, I guess. Right. If you're really looking out for your people. Yeah.
Okay. Let me give you a couple theories here, okay? Okay. So the deal is, the night before, so as soon as the clock flips over to 12:01 and now it's September 1st, the troops go across the border. Luftwaffe is flying across the border. It's going down, you know? And all night long, the, is it Ribbentrop? Ribbentrop is on the phone with the Bene, the minister over there in Poland. And he's like calling him like, hey, he's got to answer. They're like, no, he's sleeping. He's too busy. He's sleeping. Answer the phone. This is the head foreign minister of Germany calling. You know, I'm sleeping. We got the promises of Britain and France. Okay, so that defensive pact was a curse put upon the Polish by the British and you know what I'm saying? French.
Because of them not to act on their own.
Right.
Oh, interesting.
if they didn't have that pact, they would have said, okay, we're going to give you Danzig, and then we're going to sign this pact saying you won't invade the rest of our country like you just did with Czechoslovakia, loser. You know what I mean? Don't do it to us. We want our self-determination. We're not Germans, we're Poles. Nobody says the Poles are Germans. They're different ethnicities who hate each other for ethnic reasons. They're not, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not like the Czechoslovakians. But okay, so I'm going to make this pitch and you tell me how reasonable this sounds, okay? Since the defensive pact was signed with Britain, France, and Poland, if the British and the French truly cared about the people of Poland and this and that, and they honored the pact, then I will say Germany is the full aggressors, okay? They're 100% guilty. Okay. But if they don't honor that pact, and instead after that, they don't do a lick to help their ally that they just signed a pact with, and then for 9 months after that, they don't even bother battling the enemy, then I'm going to say that they're at fault. Do you know what I'm talking about? Because imagine the situation. If they really care about Poland and they really also want to stop Germany, here's what happens. They're expecting Germany to attack Danzig, right? Germany doesn't. Germany goes for Warsaw. You know what that leaves open? The port at Danzig. They can run the whole British Expeditionary Force with full naval superiority into that port. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of troops landing, right? At the same time, boom, the French army's going for the Siegfried Line, right? The Germans say, oh no, we're vulnerable on the west. Pull divisions back out of the eastern front. So now they're pulling divisions out while the Polish are getting bolstered at Warsaw with the British Expeditionary Force. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So they stall in Poland. Now they're fighting for the fatherland over here. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It might have been over right then. But instead they betrayed Poland. Instead they didn't send the troops. Instead they didn't declare war on USSR. The pact was a defensive pact protecting Poland. What about on the 17th when USSR invaded?
Yeah.
They didn't declare war on them because they had no morality, no legitimacy. Okay.
So there was no good reason why the French and the English didn't come to Poland's aid?
No, they just wanted war with Germany. They wanted desperately war with Germany. Germany did not want war. They wanted Danzig. Do you know what I'm saying? And the pact was a pretext. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, an excuse.
Right. And the pact literally said they had to declare war on the USSR, but they didn't because they didn't care about that. Their goal was to warmonger, to start this war. You know, what do you think about that? Like,
yeah, no, it's really interesting. It almost like, as you were talking, I was like, that 9-month gap, it's almost a whole separate event, everything after that 9 months. Like, that wasn't the war.
It was a 26-day conflict.
Right? The initial thing was over with and settled. I mean, imagine just 6 months later, you're just, oh yeah, that's Germany is just over there. And then once the new attacks start, the 9 months later, that's the beginning of a new thing.
Right.
A new event, it seems like.
Yeah. And if you want to talk about who's the aggressor, how many times did England offer peace?
I'm guessing little to zero.
0. How many times did France offer peace?
The same?
Once.
Oh, they did? Okay.
After Dunkirk, and the British Expeditionary Force has now left the continent, and they've already captured Paris. They did a little walk down the street in their cool little uniforms, whatever. They put together a government, Pétain, from World War I, Vichy, France in the south, and they said, hey, Germany, how about you not take all of France? We're in the south here. We won't fight you. We promise it's cool. Hitler says, cool. That's fine. I mean, you know what I mean? You guys are at war with me. I'm cool, you know? Okay. How many times did Hitler offer him peace? You know the answer to this one. You know?
I feel like we've had this talk. I'm guessing dozens?
It's 20.
20
peace offers, right? When they captured France, he immediately turned around and said, hey, Britain, hey, do you want peace? Here's the terms, right? I'm going to give you the major terms. There's some minor terms there. But the major term is I will give all of France back to France and walk right out, right? I want all of my colonies, like in Africa, I think there was like 2 in Africa, pre-World War I back that were taken. And that's also one of the 25 points in his thing, if you look at the description below. And number 3, the other big one he said was, anywhere in the world that the British are, if the Germans are called upon to aid them, they will aid without question. The entire army, military apparatus, wherever you're at, you just call aid and say, hey, we're under attack here or something. We will just come. You know what I'm saying?
What's the downside for England at that point? No war or all these good things?
Yeah, and so, I mean, if you want to talk aggressor, how I could go into more, but like one of the problems is that Churchill was no longer working for Britain. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you hear that and you say, oh, Churchill, you World War I patriot,
Right.
That sounds like a great deal for Britain. He's not working for Britain anymore. He was working for Britain in World War I, where he did news articles saying terrible, terrible anti-Semitic things that were actually factually true about who was running things in Britain. When he was running things during Second World War, he didn't have any money to pay for his entire state, the upkeep, the maintenance, this and that. He was being fully financed by a foreign group.
Oh.
So he was just serving foreigners.
Wow.
And not even foreigners, because it was still during the diaspora, so there was no Israel to serve. So they were British citizens lots of times, the bankers,
Mm-hmm.
And he was just serving a different master,
Wow.
And so, I mean, that's pretty much the story. I mean, you can draw your own conclusion about who you think the bad guys are. I think it was foolish of Hitler to sign the Munich Pact. I don't know why he did. I don't understand it fully. I might just not have enough information.
That was the Czech one? The Czech
non-aggression. And then to violate it was terrible.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, people always say like, oh, but Hitler violated the Munich Pact. Yeah, he did. That sucks, But also keep in mind that Britain and France both... What's the word I'm thinking for?
They didn't fulfill their...
Yeah, they both cheated on the defense pact with Poland.
They bailed on their ally. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, which one's worse? They're both pretty terrible, honestly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I promise I got your back, brother.
Yeah. Oh,
gone. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
terrible. Or just knocking somebody out who's weaker than you is kind of terrible too.
right.
But
I feel like I learned 0% of anything that you just said in high school.
okay, yeah,
Like, was all this after high school that you've...
yeah.
like,
All of
further
it was
reading?
after high school. I'll tell you, I came across a book just randomly. It was just a used book, and it was a Russian book, and it had a picture of the hammer, and
Okay.
it was crushing the swastika. So the swastika was like in half.
Yeah.
And it was this thick book, and I'm reading this, and I'm at work. There's this like black gay guy at my work, and he's like, "Oh, you better not be getting in that Nazi stuff." And I'm like, "They're crushing the swastika, this is pure Russian propaganda." And I read this book, and I'm so fascinated. I'm like, I don't think any of that's true. It's wild. I mean, they were like holocausting people, and then cremating them, and then using their ashes to put them on the cabbage so that the cabbage would grow, and then they could feed the cabbage to the other people before they cremated them, because there was some deep irony to this long-winded project. And I'm like, this just seems wild,
Yeah.
And so then after that, I was like, I want to see the French perspective. I've never even heard the French perspective,
okay.
So then I read, and then by then I get into college right then. And so I'm whenever I get the chance to do essays, I'm doing this. So I'm reading those books and trying to figure out. And then I get into the British side, and I do the 6-part series by Winston Churchill, which is fascinating. All the maps and stuff. It's really great. Not really as propaganda as you think, but he just doesn't tell the truth about a lot of things. Anyways, and then I just basically got into all the different sides.
Gotcha.
But you got to fish around, and you're
definitely.
trying to, like what is the story,
Yeah, piece together where the truth is.
Yeah.
Wow. What a story.
Yeah. And if you know a piece of the story that I missed, not the anti-Comintern pact, I don't believe it's related, you know what I mean? But like something relevant to the start of the war that I totally missed, like some big thing.
Some motivation. Yeah.
Yeah, put it in the comments. I'll pin the very best one on each server, just so that, or criticize anything I said. If you think I got something wrong, go for it.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. Like you said, let us know what you think on these. I personally love these historical runs that we go through. I love learning about, trying to get a better grasp on what actually happened, and I feel like it helps me form my view of current stuff too, when you realize what actually happened in the past and all that. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this too. Catch our videos Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, and leave your comments below. We'll talk to you next time.